Welcome to the overview video for Chapter 18, Ludwig van Beethoven, 1770 to 1827. The learning objectives are: number 1, to recount briefly Beethoven's career and the circumstances of his life. Number 2, to list the main characteristics of Beethoven's music before 1802, between 1802 and 1814, and after 1814. And explain why some aspects of his musical style changed during these periods. And number 3, to name several important works and describe at least one complete movement for each period listed in the previous objective. Beethoven's career is usually divided into 3 periods. Number 1, 1770 to 1802, when he mastered the musical language and genres of his time. Number 2, 1803 to 1814, when he achieved a new level of drama and expression. And number 3, 1815 to 1827, when his music became more introspective and difficult. During Beethoven's first decade in Vienna, he studied with Haydn and others and made a living by performing, teaching, publishing, and receiving gifts from generous patrons. In his piano sonatas, Beethoven made increasing demands on the performer and often used contrasts of style to delineate form and broaden the expressive range. His Sonata Pathétique includes a dramatic fantasia-like slow introduction in the first movement and a serious and intense Sonata Rondo finale with thematic and harmonic connections to the other 2 movements. Beethoven's first string quartets, Opus 18, were published in 1800, and they demonstrate his individuality in their use of themes, surprising modulations, and turns of phrase and formal structure. In his first symphony in C major, 1800, Beethoven used the model of Haydn and Mozart, yet also incorporated elements of his own distinctive style. Around 1803, Beethoven began to compose in a new, more ambitious style. He was able to do so because he had established a strong reputation in German-speaking lands, and the combination of financial, social, and creative support freed him to follow his own inspiration. Publishers competed for Beethoven's music. He could afford to take time to revise his works. He composed with great deliberation, keeping notebooks with sketches and creating music in which each part was related to the whole. In 1802, Beethoven realized that his hearing loss was permanent. After contemplating suicide, he resolved to continue for the sake of his art, writing movingly of his suffering in an unsent letter called the Heiligenstadt Testament. One way of viewing Beethoven's music after 1802 is as a narrative or drama, perhaps reflecting the struggle of his own life. Typically, Beethoven was economical in his material, like Haydn, but often expanded or reworked the form in novel ways. Beethoven's Eroica Symphony, 1803 to 1804, the first work to exemplify his new approach fully, is longer than any previous symphony and has a title celebrating a hero. In the first movement, the transformations of the first theme's main motive and its interaction with a leaping figure from the first theme group can be interpreted as a story of a hero's challenge, struggle, and final victory. The other movements are also large and dramatic: a funeral march, a fast scherzo, and a variations finale with fugal and developmental episodes. Beethoven first titled the work Bonaparte, but changed the title after Napoleon crowned himself emperor. His plan to honor Napoleon may explain the references to French revolutionary marches and hymns in the second movement. With the Eroica Symphony, Beethoven challenged listeners to engage music deeply and thoughtfully rather than merely seeking to be entertained. Over the next decade, Beethoven probed new possibilities in traditional genres and forms, composing some of his most popular works. Fidelio, his only opera, expresses humanitarian ideals of the French Revolution and went through 3 revisions before it was a success. Chamber music had traditionally been intended for enjoyment in the home, but Beethoven increasingly tested the limits of amateur players in the Razumovsky quartets, Opus 59, and other works. The concertos from Beethoven's middle period are composed on a grander scale, with the soloist often co-equal with the orchestra. Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, 1807 to 1808, portrays struggle and ultimate triumph by moving from C minor to C major and developing the famous opening four-note figure that recurs in various guises in the other three movements. Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, nicknamed the Pastoral Symphony, has 5 movements, each with a title suggesting a scene from life in the country. By 1814, Beethoven had changed audience expectations for what instrumental music can do and was celebrated as the greatest living composer. At the height of his renown, Beethoven's deafness, family problems, ill health, and larger political and economic changes forced him into greater isolation, slowed the pace of his composition, and prompted a change in focus and style. Most of his late works were addressed to connoisseurs, becoming more introspective and concentrated, with extremes from the sublime to the grotesque in works that invoked but altered classical conventions. Contrasts of style, figuration, character, meter, and tempo became exaggerated. Beethoven emphasized continuity by blurring divisions between phrases and movements. He also achieved continuity in the song cycle, a genre he created. In his late variations, Beethoven preserved only a few basic elements of the theme through a diverse series of variations. Beethoven's search for new expressive means in his late works gave rise to new sonorities, which insisted on the composer's vision at the expense of performer freedom and audience comfort. He frequently used familiar styles and genres either for expressive purposes or to reflect on tradition. Imitative counterpoint was often pronounced in his late works, especially the fugue. His reflections on tradition include reconceiving the number and order of the movements. The arrangement of forms, keys, and tempos in the string quartet in A minor, opus 132, illustrates how Beethoven simultaneously invokes and departs from tradition in his late works. While Beethoven varied the standard sequence of movements, he sought ways to integrate them more closely. Beethoven's late sonatas and quartets are for connoisseurs who are likely to appreciate the complex compositional techniques and the intertwining of tradition and innovation. Like his private works, Beethoven's last 2 large public works re-examine the traditions of the respective genres. The Missa Solemnis was not a liturgical work, but a mass for concert performance shaped as a unified 5-movement symphony. In his 9th Symphony, in 1824, Beethoven combined tradition and innovation, disparate styles, and profound emotional expression. The first 3 movements are on a grand scale. The finale refers back to the previous movements and includes solo voices and chorus in an extended movement that draws on tradition, yet is unprecedented in shape and scope. For your 25-question quiz, I would know about the following. Know where Beethoven lived and died and when. Know who he studied with. Know his largest category of music output. Know about the sonata rondo form. Know about his quartets. Know about his dealing with deafness and how it affected his life and career. Know about his symphonies. Know about the Heiligenstadt Testament. Know what Fidelio is. Know the innovation of the Fifth Symphony. Know about the struggles of Beethoven's life, both personal and politically. Know about the different styles of Beethoven. Know about his use of variation form. Know about Beethoven blurring movements and phrases and how he changes typical forms. Know about Beethoven's use of key relationships and motives. Know how Beethoven was innovative. Know how Beethoven shows his influence of other composers. And know about the dedication to Napoleon that was later changed. Good luck.